Hi, my name's Pranav, um, and I have school tomorrow. But I really feel like I had to get this video out because there's so many things that I'm starting to realize are just kind of consequences of the world that we live in. And let's just cut to the chase. We live in an attention economy, and this has kind of confuddled me because for the past couple of years I've really had a struggle with the idea of morality, of virtue, or of what's good, and that I should strive to be something better. And that's kind of led me down this kind of path of academic hardship, even though I don't always consider myself to be the best academic or the most interested in academia. But for what it's worth, this is the path that I find myself on to achieve these idyllic goals. But it's kind of interesting to see how this path is contrasted with the idea that value isn't necessary to make profit anymore. You can just make content that is so sensationalized and that only seeks to grab a user's attention for a given amount of time, and make more than enough money to live a stable life. And this is an extremely difficult question to ask, especially nowadays, when so much of the hardship that the average student faces is almost considered optional, or kind of worthless for some people, right? And this is kind of the crux of my issues. And I feel like I've spent so much time just consuming content, just because of the nature of this economy and the nature of the fact that, okay, well, now things are becoming so addicting that the average human spends maybe 6 to 8 hours a day. That's a full-time job on their phone. It's insane, and I always fall into this trap. And I kind of wanted to read you an excerpt that I wanted to make sure clears this up. And I guess the fundamental point of the excerpt is, once you become so attached to your phone, so attached to consuming content at this level, you lose your status as a human and you become a user, right? And so this fate is as unenviable as it gets. It marks the final stage before your psychosis and the death of you as an individual. Because an individual can be rhetorically defined as someone capable of authentically imprinting themselves onto the surrounding populace. An ability you have surrendered to consumption. You are not going out. You are staying indoors on your phone. Under this pretext, the person simultaneously loses their means to escape alongside the will to do so in the first place. These depths, this psychological abyss, is the last frontier because before your body is infected. Your bedroom will become a tomb, and I think that's the worst horror in the modern century that nobody talks about. In order to actively avoid this state, you must remain vigilant towards the consistent strides social media platforms take towards keeping you addicted. For the aforementioned final decrepit state is maliciously the most profitable for those feeding you content, and remains the point of highest wealth extraction that a user, you, may provide. The first step towards actively denying yourself this terrible end remains first to be invariably committed towards an authentic existence. The consequences of doing so reveal themselves almost immediately. Creation becomes the normative state of being, and consumption only rearises as a means to fuel more creation. Thus, the ascent is begun with the step into a higher plane of function. To iterate the previous context, blind consumption rears its head as mundane yet an instinctual task. You wake up and you scroll, very similar to eating or sleeping. So escaping this carnal, almost primitive state is achieved through the aforementioned thrust into creative craving. Once you've been baptized by this flame of potential, the light of purpose can only be seen when the primal urges that you've accumulated are adequately satiated. The next step is a redefinition of connection to suit our modern age. Specifically, the individual must understand that in order to be transformed by connection, one must allow themselves to be hurt by it, to be buried by it. Without this vulnerability, without a visible silhouette to interact with, connection over the online domain is robbed of the stakes that mortalize the words and feelings exchanged. There is comfort in this seemingly self-sacrificial methodology. As humans, we must bear our scars to reveal the truth behind the wounds that spawned them. Finally, we stumble upon the active ingredient embedded within social existence, within its own continuum of exchange, virtue, the refraction of morality to fit daily life, the seal of human thought inscribed upon thoughts spoken as words, the virtue that we impose upon the connections that we cultivate is a basic epithet to freedom itself. The obtrusion of nuance, ethics, and causality upon the self through an unrequital denial of the status quo is by all means the final act of self-conquest. This newfound autonomy, ironically, is a greeting for a neuroticism of its own. This could suck. There are an uncountable number of psychological and existential epiphanies ready to knock on your door to forcibly pacify this newly risen person that you become into the previous abyss, the depths that you were previously in. As such, to truly emerge from these depths is to be met with increasingly difficult challenges, and to fight simply armed with the clarity that proclaims the obstacle itself is the path. And this is the final epiphany before you can be free. It's to understand that all the hardship that you've been challenged with, this new era of hardship, is the way to go. It's the source of introspection, and it's the path that you must conquer in order to move forward. I hope this helped. Thank you.